Let's start with a simple truth: people will annoy you. Situations will frustrate you. Life will test your patience. But here's the question: why do some people stay calm, unshaken, while others explode or shut down? It's not because life treats them better. It's because they respond differently. They've trained their mind to see things from a different lens. You see, anger is never about what happened. It's about how we interpret what happened. Someone cut you off in traffic. That's an event. You yelling at your steering wheel, that's a reaction you chose. And if we can choose it, we can change it. So how do you actually do that? How do you reach a point where no one, not your boss, not your sibling, not even a stranger online, can make you angry? Let me walk you through 5 principles. First, expectations create emotional chaos. Most of our frustration stems from expecting people to think like us, behave like us, or treat us like we would treat them. But people aren't you, and they don't owe you anything. Once you understand that, you free yourself from the trap of personalizing everything. If someone doesn't say thank you, it doesn't mean they're rude. Maybe they're distracted. Maybe they're in pain. Maybe they just weren't raised like you. It's not about justifying bad behavior. It's about not assigning it power over you. Second, detach your self-worth from people's opinions. You cannot control how others speak to you, but you can control what you allow to stick. A lot of anger comes from feeling attacked, but attacks only land when you believe them. If someone calls you lazy and you know you're not, why feel offended? That's their story, not yours. The moment you stop needing approval, you stop fearing disapproval. Third, pause. Just pause. Most people react, very few respond. That space between stimulus and response, that split second pause, is where your power lies. Let's say someone insults you. In that moment, your ego wants to fight back. But if you pause and breathe, you access a different part of your brain, the rational one. Suddenly, you're not the puppet of your emotions anymore. You're the master. Fourth, choose curiosity over judgment. Anger thrives on judgment. They shouldn't do that. He's so selfish. She's always like this. But what if instead you asked, why might they act this way? What's going on behind the scenes? People are often fighting battles you don't see. That rude coworker, maybe she just lost someone she loves. That aggressive driver, maybe he's rushing to a hospital. Compassion isn't weakness, it's strength that comes from understanding. And fifth, build your emotional baseline. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. If you're constantly exhausted, overwhelmed, overstimulated, of course you'll be more irritable. But if you're grounded, sleeping well, moving your body, connecting with people who lift you up, you'll have a buffer. Things won't hit you as hard because your system isn't on edge. Now, here's the beautiful thing: when you start living this, not reacting to everything, not personalizing people's flaws, not letting small things hijack your peace, you become a mirror for others. Your calm starts to spread. Your stability becomes something others lean on. That's leadership, not shouting, not commanding, but choosing peace again and again in a noisy world. So if you want to never get angry or bothered by anyone, don't focus on changing the world. Focus on changing your interpretation of it. Master that. And you'll master yourself. At 5 keynotes from the speech, people don't bother you. Your expectations of them do. Let go of the illusion that others must behave how you want them to, and you remove the emotional charge from their actions. Your value isn't based on what others think or say. When you no longer need external validation, others lose the power to hurt or anger you. Power lies in the pause. Reactivity is impulsive, but restraint gives you the ability to respond with clarity and control. Curiosity defeats judgment. Replace assumptions with questions, and you'll replace anger with understanding. A calm life is built on daily emotional discipline. Take care of your mind and body, and you create a strong internal environment that resists external chaos. Most of the time, when we feel angry or bothered by someone, it's not really about what they did. It's about what we expected them to do. Expectations are invisible contracts we create in our minds and assume others have agreed to. We expect friends to be loyal, coworkers to be respectful, family members to be understanding, and strangers to be courteous. But the reality is no one is obligated to meet those expectations. People are not mind readers, and they don't live inside our mental playbook of what is right or wrong, polite or impolite, acceptable or unacceptable. This is where emotional chaos begins. The bigger the gap between what we expect and what actually happens, the more we suffer. Imagine this: you hold the door open for someone, they walk right through without even looking at you. Your mood shifts, you feel disrespected. But why? Did they insult you? No. Did they say something unkind? No. What they did was fail to meet your internal expectation of what should happen in that moment. You wanted to thank you. You assumed it was basic decency. But when that didn't happen, your mind translated into a lack of respect or even a statement about your worth. That's the danger of expectations. They create emotional debts that no one agreed to pay. The irony is, most of us are walking around judging people by how well they meet standards that only exist in our own minds. We get upset when our partner doesn't respond the way we hoped. We feel disappointed when our friend cancels plans. We interpret silence as distance, sarcasm as malice, or distraction as rejection. But most of the time, people are not trying to hurt us. They're just being themselves, acting from their own worldview, based on their own priorities, struggles, habits, and emotional state. When we take their behavior personally, we make ourselves the victim of a drama that might not even exist. If we want to be truly unbothered, we have to learn to loosen our grip on expectations. Not in a cynical way, not by expecting the worst from people, but by accepting that everyone sees life through their own filter. What's obvious to you isn't obvious to everyone. What feels like a rule to you might feel option to someone else. Just because you'd never behave that way doesn't mean someone else is wrong for doing it. This shift in thinking isn't about lowering your standards. It's about broadening your understanding. You start realizing that people aren't disappointing you. They're simply being themselves. The disappointment was born from your own assumptions. When you release expectations, you release judgment. And with that, you also release a huge source of emotional pain. You start moving through life with more calm and less drama. Instead of thinking, why didn't they text me back? They must not care. You think maybe they're overwhelmed. I'll give it space. Instead of thinking they're always late. They don't respect me. You might think, that's how they manage time. I don't have to let it affect me. This doesn't mean you allow toxic behavior or tolerate disrespect. It means you stop adding emotional weight to every action that doesn't align with your preferences. Freedom from anger begins the moment you understand that people don't exist to meet your expectations. And the more you allow people to be who they are without demanding they be who you want, the more peace you'll feel. You no longer waste energy on trying to control things you can't control. You start managing your own reactions instead of other people's behavior. That is where strength lies, not in forcing others to act differently, but in becoming less reactive to how they act. The real mastery is in seeing people as they are, not as who you think they should be. That takes maturity, patience, and a level of emotional responsibility that few people practice. But once you start, it changes everything. You stop walking into situations with preloaded assumptions. You observe more, react less. You stop assuming offense where none was intended. And even when someone truly is being difficult or rude, it no longer shakes you because your peace is not tied to their behavior. Expectations will always exist. That's human. But the more aware you become of your own, the more control you have over how they affect you. And in that awareness, you find freedom, the freedom to stay calm, clear, and centered, no matter how unpredictable the world around you becomes. One of the most powerful truths you can learn is this: your value is not determined by what others think or say about you. As long as your self-worth is tied to external approval, you will always be vulnerable to anger, frustration, and emotional instability. The moment you begin to measure your value based on someone else's opinion, you give away control of your emotions. When someone criticizes you and you believe it, it hurts. When someone disrespects you and you take it personally, it rattles you. But the issue isn't their words, it's your attachment to those words. It's the belief that their view of you defines who you are. This is a trap many people fall into without realizing it. It begins early in life. When we are conditioned to seek validation from parents, teachers, and authority figures, we get praise for good behavior, punished for bad behavior, and slowly we internalize a message: I am worthy only if others approve of me. This pattern continues into adulthood. We strive for likes, compliments, attention, and recognition, thinking those things will make us feel valuable. But this kind of self-worth is fragile. It's built on sand. One insult, one moment of rejection, one harsh word, and suddenly our mood shifts. We become defensive, insecure, angry. The reality is people's opinions are just reflections of their own mindset, not objective truths about you. Someone might call you lazy, not because you are, but because your pace threatens their own standards. Someone might say you're not good enough, not because you lack value, but because your presence challenges their comfort zone. When we internalize these judgments, we end up feeling wounded by projections that were never about us to begin with. To truly become unbothered by people, you must build an internal foundation that doesn't rely on their validation. You have to know who you are so clearly that no one else gets to define it for you. That means taking ownership of your values, your decisions, your progress, and your flaws. It means recognizing your worth without needing others to confirm it. When you understand your intentions and you're honest with yourself, then criticism loses its sting. You stop reacting to every opinion because you no longer see them as truth. You see them as noise. It's easy to believe in yourself when everyone supports you. The real test is how you carry yourself when you're misunderstood, criticized, or ignored. When someone says something negative about you and you feel angry, ask yourself, why does it bother me? Do I believe what they said? Or am I just afraid that others will? Often, the pain doesn't come from the insult itself. It comes from the fear that it might be true or that others might believe it's true. But if you've done the work to know yourself deeply, then no comment can shake you because you're rooted in reality, not perception. The more confident you are in your own character, the less you need to defend it. When someone attacks you verbally and you remain calm, it's not weakness, it's clarity. You're not wasting energy on proving anything to anyone. You know that not everyone will like you, understand you, or support you, and that's okay. Their opinion is their right, just as your peace is yours. You begin to realize that disagreement is not danger, disapproval is not rejection, and criticism is not destruction. These are just moments. They pass. They don't define you unless you let them. There's a kind of freedom that comes when you no longer seek permission to feel worthy. You stop being triggered by every insult or slight because you've built an inner world where your opinion of yourself matters more than anyone else's. You don't become arrogant or closed off. You simply become anchored. You know who you are, and no passing comment can unseat that truth. You move through life with more grace, more calm, and more confidence, not because people are nicer to you, but because their words no longer hold power over your sense of identity. When you detach your self-worth from external opinions, you reclaim your emotional freedom. You stop taking things personally. You stop reacting to every judgment. And most importantly, you begin to live a life where peace isn't determined by the behavior of others, but by the strength of your relationship with yourself. That's the kind of peace no one can take away. The ability to pause before reacting is one of the most underrated yet powerful skills you can ever develop. Most people don't realize just how automatic their responses are. Someone says something disrespectful and we snap. Someone disagrees with us and we raise our voice. A mistake happens and we immediately look for someone to blame. These are conditioned reflexes, instant emotional reactions that take over before we even process what's going on. But between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space lies the power to choose a different path. When you're not aware of that space, you live in a constant state of reactivity. Your mood is controlled by external forces. You're essentially a puppet, and whoever pulls the string, intentionally or not, gets a reaction. But when you learn to pause, even for a second, you interrupt that automatic loop. You insert a moment of awareness between what just happened and how you're going to respond. That moment changes everything. It puts you back in the driver's seat. You move from being emotionally hijacked to being emotionally intelligent. The pause doesn't have to be long. Sometimes it's just one deep breath. Sometimes it's asking yourself a simple question, is this worth my energy? Other times it's walking away for a moment to gather yourself. But in every case, the pause acts as a circuit breaker. It allows your thinking brain to catch up before your emotional brain takes over. This doesn't mean suppressing how you feel. It means observing your emotions instead of obeying them blindly. You start to realize that just because a feeling shows up doesn't mean you have to act on it. Anger can knock at your door, but you don't have to let it inside. Pausing is not weakness. It's not passivity. It's strategic. It gives you the upper hand because now you're responding with intention, not just reacting out of habit. That coworker who makes a snide comment, instead of firing back and escalating the conflict, you pause and respond calmly, or maybe you say nothing at all and let their own behavior speak for itself. That friend who cancels last minute, instead of taking it personally and sending a passive-aggressive text, you pause and ask yourself if this situation really needs to steal your peace. You begin to recognize how much energy you've been giving away to things that don't deserve it. There's a reason people who seem calm and centered are so respected. It's not that their lives are easier or that people never test their patience. It's that they've trained themselves to pause, reflect, and choose their response wisely. They've stopped letting the outside world dictate their inner world. That doesn't happen by accident. It's a habit, one built over time, by making small decisions every day not to be ruled by impulse. One of the biggest benefits of the pause is that it gives you time to reframe. What if that rude tone wasn't meant as an insult, but just a reflection of someone else's stress? What if that sharp comment wasn't about you at all, but about the other person's insecurity? The pause gives you space to consider other angles, and that alone can prevent unnecessary conflict. It allows empathy to enter the room. It allows clarity to override ego. And often when you pause, you'll realize the situation doesn't require any response at all. When you don't pause, anger becomes your default language. You react quickly, say things you don't mean, and then spend hours regretting it. You replay conversations, overanalyze reactions, and carry emotional baggage that wasn't necessary in the first place. But when you start building a habit of pausing, you protect yourself from that cycle. You stop giving temporary emotions the power to create permanent damage. It takes discipline to pause, especially in heated moments when everything inside you wants to react, to defend, to win. But if you practice this consistently, it becomes second nature. You begin to notice a sense of power, not over others, but over yourself. You don't get pulled into drama because you've created space inside you that doesn't get triggered so easily. That space becomes your strength. And eventually, people around you notice. They trust your judgment more. They see you as grounded, not because life is calm, but because you are. In every situation, you have a choice. React out of habit or respond with purpose. The pause is where that choice begins. And once you master that, you stop being controlled by circumstances and start being led by your principles. That is the real power. To remain calm, not because the world is easy, but because you've learned to pause before the world gets the best of you. Curiosity is one of the most powerful tools we have for transforming the way we experience difficult people and challenging situations. Most of the time, when someone behaves in a way that frustrates or offends us, our first instinct is judgment. We instantly label their actions rude, selfish, lazy, aggressive. And once we assign that label, our brain locks in. We don't try to understand, we simply react. Judgment leads to anger, and anger leads to distance. But what if we replace that judgment with a question? What if instead of assuming someone's intention, we became curious about what might be going on beneath the surface? People are complicated. They are shaped by a lifetime of experiences, many of which we'll never see. Childhood trauma, financial stress, mental health challenges, cultural differences, deep insecurities, all of these can influence how a person speaks, behaves, or reacts. But when someone snaps at us or ignores us or does something inconsiderate, we rarely think about those possibilities. We immediately assume malice, disrespect, or arrogance. And that assumption fuels our anger. We take things personally even when they aren't personal. We make quick conclusions that deepen the divide. Curiosity changes that. It invites us to ask, what else could be true here? Maybe the person who cut you off in traffic isn't rude. They're rushing to the hospital. Maybe your coworker who always interrupts isn't trying to be disrespectful. They're anxious about being heard. Maybe your friend who canceled plans isn't flaky. They're dealing with something they haven't shared yet. These aren't excuses, they're possibilities. And even just considering them softens our reaction. It helps us move from defensiveness to understanding, from assumption to awareness, from anger to empathy. When you lead with curiosity, you train your brain to seek understanding instead of punishment. Instead of seeing others as problems, you begin to see them as humans. You realize that just as you have bad days, misunderstandings, or emotional triggers, so do they. You remember that people often project what they're going through, and it has little to do with you. This shift in mindset is powerful. It not only helps you avoid unnecessary conflict, but it also preserves your peace. Because once you stop jumping to conclusions, you stop jumping into emotional chaos. Being curious doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It doesn't mean justifying harmful behavior or pretending everything is okay. It simply means asking questions before drawing conclusions. It's the humility to say, I don't know what's going on with this person, so I won't assume the worst. It's the emotional intelligence to separate someone's behavior from your identity. When someone acts poorly, you don't take it as a reflection of your worth. You see it as a reflection of their inner world. This mindset also opens the door for better communication. Instead of confronting someone with anger, why did you do that? You might ask, hey, is everything okay? That simple shift changes the tone entirely. It signals care instead of accusation. It invites honesty instead of defensiveness. Most people don't respond well to judgment, but they do respond to curiosity. When you show genuine interest in understanding rather than proving someone wrong, you create space for dialogue instead of drama. Practicing curiosity also helps you become more aware of your own emotional patterns. You start noticing how quickly you form stories about people, stories based on limited information. You catch yourself before reacting and you begin to ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Is it the only story possible? This habit of mental questioning builds emotional resilience. It helps you step back from your reactions and view situations more objectively. You're no longer driven by your assumptions, you're guided by your awareness. Over time, curiosity becomes a default setting. You begin to approach life with a sense of observation rather than accusation. You stop needing to control how others act because you're focused on understanding why they act the way they do. This creates inner peace because you're no longer triggered by every little misstep or misunderstanding. You don't waste energy reacting to things that don't deserve a reaction. You use that energy to explore, to learn, and to connect. The truth is, everyone is going through something, whether they show it or not. Curiosity allows you to treat others with grace, and more importantly, it allows you to protect your own mental state. It's not about excusing bad behavior. It's about not allowing that behavior to control your emotions. When you choose curiosity over judgment, you gain clarity, empathy, and emotional freedom. You begin to live in a world where people's actions don't define your responses, your awareness does. Your emotional stability isn't something that just shows up when you need it. It's built over time through small, consistent habits that form your baseline. Most people think emotional control is about what you do in the heat of the moment. When someone offends you, when you're under pressure, when things go wrong. But in truth, the foundation for how you react in those moments is laid long before they happen. It's shaped by the quality of your sleep, the thoughts you feed your mind, your daily routines, your nutrition, your movement, your conversations, and even the way you speak to yourself. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your preparation. When your body is exhausted, your emotions are fragile. When your mind is cluttered, your reactions are impulsive. When you're constantly overstimulated, jumping from screen to screen, never taking a moment to breathe, you become more irritable, more reactive, more sensitive. It becomes easier for little things to push you over the edge. You snap at someone not because they did something awful, but because your system was already on edge. The problem is, we often blame the final trigger without examining the emotional buildup that came before it. That's why building a strong emotional baseline is not optional, it's essential. Think of it like a reservoir. Every healthy habit you practice, sleep, exercise, mindfulness, meaningful connection, fills that reservoir. So when stress hits, when someone says something rude, when your plans fall apart, you have something to draw from. You have reserves of patience, clarity, and emotional energy to handle the situation calmly. But if you're running on empty, even the smallest inconvenience feels overwhelming. You end up reacting in ways you regret, not because the situation called for it, but because you didn't have the bandwidth to respond differently. One of the most overlooked aspects of emotional stability is self-awareness. Knowing what triggers you, what drains you, what strengthens you, and what restores you gives you an advantage. You start to design your life in a way that supports your peace. Maybe you realize that late nights make you short-tempered, so you prioritize rest. Maybe you notice that social media makes you more judgmental or anxious, So you reduce your screen time. Maybe you discover that morning movement clears your mind and grounds your mood, so you make it a daily habit. These adjustments may seem small, but over time, they shape who you are under pressure. Building an emotional baseline also means being intentional about what you consume. The content you watch, the conversations you engage in, the people you surround yourself with, they all influence your mental and emotional state. If your days are filled with negativity, comparison, conflict, or chaos, don't be surprised when you start to mirror that energy. On the other hand, if you fill your space with growth, learning, stillness, and encouragement, you create a climate where anger and reactivity have no place to thrive. You become less interested in reacting and more interested in understanding, observing, and growing. Discipline is another cornerstone, not in the sense of rigid control, but in the sense of commitment to doing the small things that keep you grounded, even when you don't feel like it, even when no one is watching. Discipline means meditating for 5 minutes even when you're busy. It means choosing a thoughtful response when it would be easier to react. It means walking away from unnecessary conflict even when your ego wants to win. These daily acts of discipline create internal strength. And strength is what you lean on when the world tests your patience. When your emotional baseline is strong, you don't get shaken easily. Someone insults you and it doesn't land. Someone disagrees with you and it doesn't threaten you. Someone ignores you and it doesn't define you. You're rooted, not because you've eliminated all challenges, but because you've built yourself to withstand them. You've done the inner work. You've protected your energy. You've kept your mind clear, your heart steady, and your reactions intentional. The truth is, you can't wait until you're angry to start practicing peace. You can't wait until conflict arises to start learning patience. Just like an athlete trains before the game, you must train your emotional system every day through your choices, your routines, and your mindset. That's how you stay calm when others lose control. That's how you stay centered when chaos hits. That's how you make sure that no one, not even the most difficult person, has the power to disturb your peace. Your emotional strength becomes your quiet shield, built not in moments of crisis, but in moments of discipline. The real path to never getting angry or bothered by anyone isn't found in controlling others, it's found in mastering yourself. When you let go of rigid expectations, you stop placing your peace in other people's hands. When you detach your self-worth from opinions, you stop giving others the power to define you. When you learn to pause, you create space between impulse and intention. When you choose curiosity over judgment, you replace tension with understanding. And when you build a strong emotional baseline through daily habits, you develop the resilience to stay calm no matter what the world throws at you. Peace is not the absence of chaos, it's the ability to remain undisturbed within it. And once you begin living from that place, you stop reacting to everything and start rising above it all.